the funnel is very unforgiving in these scenarios, right? The bill payment.
Somehow everybody wants me to pay my electricity bills, right? Credit
Why?
wants me to do that,
Why?
Airtel wants me to do that, Paytm wants me to do that, my bank wants me to do that. That's because the stickiness will be high.
It is the stickiness of it, and no one can then take you away. It is a mix of technology, process, people orientation,
But
incentive
you would
structures.
like to get there.
The relationship,
An average
exactly.
guy has at least 3 bank relationships, and now there are people who are the Creds of the world and the Airtels of the world who also want me to make the bill payments from there. So as a consumer, I also don't know how fragmented my play looks like, because I paid here, this guy's still reminding me what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's a little messy as far as the customer experience is concerned.
User engagement and retention is a crucial but least understood aspect of growing a successful business. We are here to change that. Hi, this is Ankur. Join me as I dive into conversation with the best and brightest minds in user engagement to help you navigate the why, what, and how of this subject.
Good morning, everyone. This is the State of Retention Marketing podcast. My name is Ankur, and today we have Deepak Oram with us. He's the person I've seen the most often as the most prolific speaker on the subject of MarTech overall. He, in fact, made a super early choice to actually move from a technical side and a marketing context to a combination. So he's been in the banking industry for a good amount of time now, and I would actually let him introduce himself a little bit in terms of his journey and why he chose MarTech when he did. Right? Thank you so much for doing this, Deepak. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thank you, Ankur. Thank you so much. So I have to go into history, right? How I arrived at MarTech as a career choice. So I'll go back to my first digital marketing job. Okay, I have been a developer. I've been a coder. I've been doing my own businesses online. So I knew marketing. But first corporate job where I was digital marketing person was in ICICI Bank. Okay, and the first task that was given to me in about a week's time was that if I run a performance marketing campaign for savings account, how many people do you need to hire as sales officers, in which regions, and what should be the incentive structure? Right?
Cool.
So that's a clear...
Sounds like a great job, right? This is all 11 you're talking
about. It's not marketing, right? I mean, it's not really marketing. I mean, it is marketing because you
in
need
2011, this is...
You know, if you can get a lot of leads, but the downstream is going to struggle with those leads, in the sense that the conversion rate will be the funnel is very unforgiving in these scenarios, right? So you can always get a lot of leads in, but then at the end you will not get much. So is there ROI? Is the question that I asked myself. So this is where kind of you get into technology a lot. Is there a CRM? What happens downstream in the CRM? Is the CRM effective? That is 10 years ago. Nowadays, you get into
when you say CRM, at that point, you're saying the lead management workflows.
Yes,
okay.
The workflows, the assignment, what is it that we are enabling the salesperson with downstream, right? Okay. So on and so forth. So this is all at the end of the day marketing because it impacts customer experience. If the salesperson is not informed, it's a bad customer experience, it's bad marketing. Don't take the lead if you can't service it, boss. So it's a very short-sighted way of looking at things and a non-holistic way of looking at things. So that's why you can't just say I will advertise or I will have a great creative, I will have top of mind awareness, I will have a great creative, I will have great mass media. That has to go somewhere. And that is why you need to have technology. Today, everything, the moment a customer shows interest, technology gets involved.
I know.
Right? Because
we'll get to this. I want to continue the thread on the performance marketing to the MarTech side and the CRM bit and how did that play out. We'll get to this, of course. Sure. And we have a long time.
Sure. So in short, right, for a marketer to be effective, you have to have effective marketing, but an effective customer experience when that marketing has actually worked. Otherwise, you're plugging holes into your own ship. I've marketed well, I brought the customer in, then what?
Sure.
Right? So that is why you have to get into technology. There are two types of technologies in MarTech, and the lines are now blurring slowly. One is the pure marketing-owned technologies, optimization of creatives, web analytics, how do you measure your A/B testing, so on and so forth. Then there is when the customer actually gives you the interest, then CRM onwards, fulfillment onwards, sales enablement onwards, right? Digitization of the salesperson, digitization of the fulfillment process is also becoming very, very important now. That's in banking more than anywhere else has become a marketer's problem to solve.
Sure.
Because it's frustrating for a marketer to get people in and then see that going down a hole, right?
Absolutely.
And as you know, in banking and traditional organizations, this digital transformation is very, very complex to do, right? So people like myself, and I'm sure colleagues of mine in other banks, and even in other types of businesses, right, are getting into the fulfillment part now. So I would, like you said, you jumped early on the MarTech train. I'm jumping on the next 5-year wave, okay, which is MarTech that concerns not just to marketing automation, but to customer experience automation, sales automation, right? And even to a large extent, business plans around minimization of distribution cost.
Okay.
Right?
That's a complex term.
That's a big one.
Double click on that one. So 2011, you were doing performance marketing for ICICI. You started doing the fulfillment side of things. So maybe you deployed the first CRM there. And from an org perspective, was there reluctance, resistance? Was it welcoming? I mean, not to take credit away from ICICI for thinking in this direction, but were they receptive enough to now let you do this whole sales enablement side, getting better assignments to the sales officers, the whole CRM technology in place? Was that in motion then?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think most organizations understand this problem which I just spoke about, right?
Yeah.
That I can get the people in, but if I can't service them, it is a loss to the organization.
And it's a marketing ownership area now increasingly accepted.
Yes.
So what was the next steps from there? So what happened at ICICI and where do you go from there?
So after ICICI, I joined another organization in banking called IDFC, right? So over there, the first problem I solved was this, by the way.
The lead is in and now what do we do?
So in 2014, I maybe get the year wrong,
like that.
I had to build account opening.
Okay.
Right? Saying how can you get the traffic in and open the account instantly?
Acha. So it's a digitally
entirely
automated account opening?
Entirely automated, what you see today.
But this is IDFC's corporate policy to actually go this route, go digital first or rather digital only in that sense?
Yes. There was a choice.
And that's why you were the right guy for the job.
Yeah, because I was problem solving this whole part. Okay, you can always pay a Facebook, you can always pay a Google, right? But then that's not difficult. I'm sorry, but that's not difficult, right? What is difficult is the fulfillment part. And obviously you want a challenge in life, right? So I said, okay, let's build that. And with IDFC, it was fairly interesting because it was a new bank, wanted to get deposits, which is current account, saving account deposits, fixed deposits, so on and so forth. So the only way to do it was to, of course, you can advertise, of course, you can have a good brand, you can set it up, you can set up branches as well. But if you really want to minimize the cost of going big, you have to digitize the account opening, the fixed deposit opening. Right. So at that point, I said, okay, let's design that as part of problem solving for growth, right? Because you can advertise, but then it'll trickle down into nothing, right? So if you when we built that, it was actually a very good outcome because the sheer humongous scale of conversions, which would not have happened.
Yeah, there would be a lot of leakage otherwise.
Exactly.
So what you did was all the incoming traffic, let's say for a performance campaign on FDs or savings account, would have a web experience, which is letting them actually do that entire exercise without having to speak to anybody.
Exactly.
Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. Just put in Aadhaar. And
so this is post Aadhaar. So Aadhaar obviously enabled a lot of this automation.
So Aadhaar, see, we all knew Aadhaar. In fact, in banking, when I was in banking earlier at ICICI as well, we were waiting for that day when when Aadhaar will become equivalent of KYC, where you can. But we thought it was always going to be a thumbprint. Then we said, okay, when is there going to be a biometric device on a phone? I'm like, on a normal consumer phone, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
It is there though now. But
yeah, I know it is there now. This is many years back, right? So then I was thinking, but then government said, okay, Aadhaar OTP is KYC. Very good, great. So now we can fulfill everything.
Pretty much natively rode the Aadhaar KYC wave, and you were the early adopters in that sense at IDFC. So that gave you that KYC step automated, and then the rest of it was relatively more straightforward, or was it?
It was fairly straightforward, but again, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure. After the FD?
Absolutely.
Right? You made a FD, now what?
Yeah.
Right? So that is, so the first onboarding of the customer is only about what, 5%? of the game, right?
Correct.
There's a lifetime value, relationship value of a customer that needs to grow over time. A fixed deposit is great, but to be honest, in banking, fixed deposit actually is a liability, right? It's described as a liability.
Yeah, true.
Right? Asset is when you give a loan out,
Hmm.
right? So how do you graduate a customer from a fixed deposit or account to a credit card or to a loan, right? Where that is where the bucks are, right? I mean, to be honest,
You
that is where the
mentioned
money.
lifetime value, and that's what we relate strongly to the whole idea of retention. That once somebody is in a relationship with you, what do they do after that?
Yeah.
And like you said, it's only 5% of the job done once you've got your first FD. Fun fact: as of today, a lot of marketers start to celebrate when they've acquired customers, and that's the part which probably you find the immaturity of the ecosystem still. But we'll get to that.
But it is, we are evolving. I mean,
Yeah,
let
that's
me
right.
not
So
say
it's a
that
journey. It's a journey.
It's a journey. We are evolving, and look, digital is. I mean, now it's, by the way, it's now 20 years old, right? It's not new, but yeah, sometimes what happens is that there are waves, and it's almost like the music industry. You know, something that becomes popular, like it becomes big, right? Then you realize there is a whole new genre that is just waiting next door, right? So a
Sure.
lot of people have got onto the, like one kind of genre, which is acquisition. There's a huge
The music paddle, I had never thought of it before.
yeah, so
but great.
but there's jazz, you know, there's blues, there's classical music out there, which is, you know, little more complex
I'm
and
gonna
not
try
as easy as something that's very
Gonna try to process
catchy.
this bit around the music as a paddle. That's interesting.
All I'm saying is it's
interesting.
it's a acquired taste. Okay, acquisition
Really?
is
Okay.
like acquisition is like pop music. Okay, it's very pop. It's interesting. You can get a reward right away. No, it's catchy, right?
Yeah.
Acquisition is like that. You can, okay, my graph is growing, very good. I like it, right? But
Retention is
like classical
boring.
music. Yeah, it's like
Takes
a
time.
concerto. It takes time to build up, right? 21 minutes long, right? You see.
So now you were at IDFC where you're trying to solve for what happens after the first FD is done. So what were the state of the affairs then? What kind of tools were available? What kind of people skills are available? What were your biggest challenges? What was your org mindset?
You don't profit from the customer the moment they open an account. In fact, you incur a cost. You know, because you pay a cost for your internet banking. Okay, so if you have an Infosys-based system, core banking, you are paying Infosys license fees per account.
Sure.
Okay, if you have an Oracle-based system, you are paying them license fees per account.
And you also
the cost
spend
of
that money
hosting,
on Google and Facebook and all of
yeah,
that.
the net banking mobile app costs per customer, right?
Sure.
It's not free, so you know that's why there are charges which people don't like. But the reality is there is cost involved,
Sure.
right? Infrastructure costs money, even if it's cloud. Software licensing costs money. So when you get the customer in, you start incurring cost. And then you hope against hope that customer will start operating that account. They'll put more money in it, which is not which is there, and then they don't take it out, so which is retention. And then you can take that money and lend it out at a higher interest rate, and you have a
That's your
margin,
business model, essentially.
and you have a margin in the middle. So how do you? The business model will not work if there is no retention. Please understand.
Sure.
Acquisition is not going to make bank any profit, right? If the money is parked there for years together, that money is getting lent out at a higher interest rate.
That's the
and the
point.
margin is what bank is making in the
Correct.
simplest way I can explain
That's
it.
banking for you.
That's banking in short. So that is why retention is where the money is made. Acquisition, whereas the opportunity of making money actually becomes real.
So now we have the whole business around FDs turning into more. So what happens here? How was the journey there?
So if FDs have to become turn into more, and again in banking, what happens is we can lend you money if you are active with us. If you are not active with us, can't lend you money.
Sure.
Simple. You have 5 lakh rupees parked in a bank account for a year. Why won't a bank give you a credit card with a 2 lakh rupee limit? You're safe. You have money.
Sure.
Salary is coming every month, right? And it's an X amount. That amount, obviously, we can give you as a credit line on a credit card, right? Similarly, you can give out a loan.
Sure.
You would have heard of an instant loan, pre-approved loan, just one click. Where does that come from? That comes from the fact that you have been active with the bank for a long duration of period where we have some confidence saying, okay, this guy has enough salary coming in consistently for 12, 24, 36 months. It is of a certain value. Yes, this is a safe customer. If I give him a loan or her a loan, he or she will be able to pay it back to this extent. That's the simplest way of explaining it.
Yeah.
So what is that actually? That is retention, right? That is customer being active.
I'm going to zoom into the people side of things, the technology side of things, and the data side of things.
Yeah.
So, whichever is your favorite, please pick that up as the first one. That, okay, at IDFC, now that you want to do this, from people and stakeholder management, the mindset shifts. I don't know what kind of org this was, and how did you navigate that this is a mandate, that this is how the conversion flow should look like, this is how the friction needs to get removed. How do you optimize that whole experience?
Yeah, so it has multiple stakeholders, as you rightly said, right? So it's obviously a people thing, right? While traditional bankers know very well that this is the game. Open the account, get the people in, then just hold on to them till the time they are eligible for a loan or a card, and then go back to them, sir. Do you want a loan? Yeah, I've got a card for you, sir. Please, they are the benefits. Right? The traditional banker knows this very well. The digital marketeer, because the industry is very acquisition focused, knows this, but executing it is still, I would feel, in the industry, not to name any organization, but general banking industry, it is still evolving.
Early days,
right?
Sure.
This the entire onboarding, retention, being able to digitally activate the customer when you feel that the customer is not giving you their entire business is something that needs to be stitched. We know it. Everyone does it, but everyone is doing it in pieces, I feel. Right?
Sure. So that's where, would you have somewhere a dashboard that, okay, X number of people have been acquired on FDs or whatever entry point into the banking ecosystem. Now, out of it, Y% has now moved from the first interaction to the second intimate interaction, which is, let's say, maybe a smaller loan or maybe a smaller credit card or something. And then you have a KPI around moving X number of people from here to here on a quarterly basis with whatever activities you do in terms of campaigns, in terms of automations, in terms of their app experiences. So how is that journey navigated, both from a people, process, and technology standpoint?
So people and processes are definitely there. A guy will today pick up the phone and call you.
They will know. The default that
because
as of now somebody is an RM or whatever will try and call you and give you
exactly. The RM will pick up the phone and call you and say, look, I've seen that you've done X, Y, Z. I would recommend that you do this also. Or take up by insurance.
But now if I were to notice the SMS / app message that we keep getting from banks lately, there is usually you have a pre-approved limit of this X level. And I've not usually found this to be a very intelligently done job. Even with the bank that I've done banking for the last 20 years or another bank which has been my credit card for the last 10 years, the way they've done this data analysis or whatever, either they're being consciously very secure or safe or protective, or they just don't know what they're doing. So there's something wrong.
No, so it is about technology and people, right? The incentive structure is about getting more in to the bank, right? So can I sell more?
Yeah.
Is basically everyone's job, right? What technology needs to solve is by doing not an actual sale, I'm still enabling a future sale. That part is not very stitched together in most organizations, I will say. What is the revenue impact of me sending you a happy birthday message, for example?
Sure.
What is the revenue impact of me giving you financial advice as opposed to cross-selling to you? That
relationship building, reputation building, brand building, those components are the soft side of things which will have a long-term value prop. Education is considered very valuable across most industries, especially investing as a subject now. So what I was trying to zoom into was when the IDFC bank decided to go this route, they were more digital first. And I think after that, there have been more people like DBS which have gone digital only in that sense. And these people are expected to be slightly agile with their internal adoption of these things, right? So from that perspective, if agility were to be a metric on which you were to look at your the employer, IDFC bank, in terms of the way you were able to make these things happen and the stakeholder alignment, maybe there was some top-down support available. What was that like? What was that journey like?
I think everyone knows the theory, right? But it is for the people like myself,
right,
to push the envelope, right? And say, I want to do this by this time.
Okay.
Because I see something happening in my data that tells me this is required, right?
So you would have a bunch of analysts there, or help me go deeper into this journey.
So basically, the analyst typically, and this is early, this is some 2014, 15, right? So the analyst is basically me.
Okay.
Right?
Are you saying that in the entire bank, the guy who's actually mining data is...
No. In terms of deploying technology to solve a problem, typically it's an individual who's slightly ahead of the curve. I'm not going to...
That's usually how
it is. That's usually how it works, because you don't hire people for a tech investment that is in the future. Because the ROI has not been calculated yet. If the ROI has not been calculated, how is someone approving a headcount?
Sure.
Simply not possible.
That's how large org
Yeah,
works.
so
Okay.
typically in organizations where the innovation is happening, there is no ROI that is associated with it. So innovation typically always is done by individuals who are self-motivated.
Fair enough.
Right? So they have done the calculation saying, okay, this is something that will make us more money, which always is the outcome of this will make the customer happier, which always is the outcome of someone being self-motivated, right?
Fair enough.
So these three things come together to make you, I feel, say the right thing and do the right thing and push your management to do the right thing, right?
Yeah, so that's what I'm zooming into. What did you tell your management? How did you make a case? How did you build a team further, if at all you did at that point? How far did you run with it alone? And who were the different stakeholders that you would align?
So typically, anyone doing customer experience in a bank has three stakeholders that you need to completely align with yourself: CDO, CIO, and CMO. These three guys are who make a banking experience, the banking experience,
Okay.
right? In today's day and age, I'm sure there is banking and retail as well, right? But when let's zoom into what we are talking about, our industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that sense, the CDO, CMO, CIO have to work together. And typically, as a MarTech guy, you have to not just, if you report into a CDO or a CMO, and we are coming to a time when MarTech guys will be under CIO as well, right? You have to ensure that all three are aligned and there is a joint vision, shared sort of vision that is there for you to take it ahead.
So are you the one selling to these three major
Yes, absolutely.
stakeholders? What do
All
you
the
sell to
time.
the CMO? What does he care about and what do you tell him?
So CMO cares about customer experience a lot and revenue. Today, CMOs are now going towards revenue more than awareness, which was the norm for quite a few years, right? With digitization, digital was not really there. With digital marketing and digitally enabled onboarding, marketers are moving towards revenue, right? So obviously, for a CMO, the pitch is very simple. This will increase your revenue. If you increase revenue, obviously the organization benefits. Obviously, that benefits everyone in the organization, right?
So this is how we sell digital onboarding.
Yeah, onboarding, marketing, and including data, right? So onboarding.
Sure.
Yeah, so even data science is going towards the CMO a lot these days.
Okay.
Right? It's not a. It used to be a shared service.
Traditionally, the CMO's home ground because data scientists have been slightly new to this subject matter. But okay, so you sold to the CMO about growth and revenue by investments in data science and investments in some MarTech.
Yes.
Part one. CDO, what does he care about and what do you sell to him?
So CDOs obviously are always involved in evolving the organization, right? They are
He's a forward thinker.
digital transformation guys. They are the default digital transformation guys, right? So their concern has always been, how do I transform quickly? Not silly, speed.
Speed matters.
They care about speed. That is where kind of MarTech comes in, right? It gives you speed.
So they feel excited about the speed at which you can bring to the equation. Okay.
Yeah. So MarTech, I mean, again, going from traditional way of thinking, there's AdTech. There is MarTech, which has CRM. Now, typically had CRM. Then it has data science now. Yeah. And then people are slowly going towards low code onto the onboarding side. Not just low code onto A/B testing or creative setup and all that.
So MarTech is a large subject, so the incremental investments will get justified because the CMO sees increased revenue, the CDO sees a room to do innovation faster, and there was a CTO as well in the stakeholders.
CTO or CIO, typically CTO or CIO will obviously want to see higher ROI on the technology spend.
He's the one signing the check?
It's typically
it's a combination.
It's a combination because we don't bring in the revenue.
Yeah.
Why are you spending on the platform, right?
Sure.
So exactly that's why it's a shared vision. It's a shared
so
joint statement.
Understand that it takes a lot of championing on the part of somebody who's trying to push this envelope, being self-motivated as an individual. But if I were to have a conversation with a CMO to say that in your org, this is how you need to navigate this journey, they can't probably depend on the fact that they'll hire somebody like a Deepak who will be the champion, who will convince everybody and then they'll move forward. They will want to do some sort of stakeholder alignment. And that's where I'm trying to get this deeper that, okay, for a leader in the banking ecosystem or even the new age fintech ecosystem, to make sure that this whole thing is aligned effectively. What is it that you tell each of the stakeholders which gets them buy-in?
So what I've now learned over the last few years, again, going to ICICI,
sure,
performance marketing, but the lead goes nowhere. Distribution cost.
Okay.
We touched upon this, right? The distribution cost of digital is just humongously low compared to physical, right?
So less branches and still larger business. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Now, branches should always be there as a service
Sure.
point, but not necessarily for cross sell, right? Typically, people don't go to a branch to book an FD anymore. You can do it digitally online. You've been able to do it for the last 15 years, right? So digital banking has been around 15 years. So you don't go to a branch to book an FD. Similarly, if you had to open an account, you used to go to a branch, but you don't do anymore.
No,
right?
not anymore.
But if you have a problem, if you have advice, a branch manager is, if you go to a Tiruchirappalli, if you go to Jubrithalaya, the branch manager is the village's advisor in financial advice, right? Yes, sir, do this. I would advise you to get your daughter married at this point when you have enough savings. Now, it goes that deep, right? So you can never discount the value of a branch, but the cross-sell part, I think, slowly is moving away, right?
Okay.
People are trying more things digitally and to get things done.
But there's also a sort of adoption curve, right? Now, you and me sitting in Bombay in an urban kind of context with pretty quick digital habit changes are much savvier with our place compared to a larger part of India, which is still growing into it. And given that there is a bunch of banking fraud of all shapes and sizes that's happening, it's also probably going to push back people from that ease of adoption somewhere. So there is the whole trust element that branches provide, which is why you need to have them. And from your perspective, when you look at this whole journey, you're saying that the cost of distribution coming down is the business case for banks to really go, let's say, a few steps forward in this journey.
In fact, I was talking to some D2C retailers.
Okay.
It's the same problem. There is
distribution.
They're saying if I put my product on an e-commerce website, the commissions are just humongous.
Sure.
Beyond a point, okay. And what I was telling them, boss, if you, okay, what if you are, let's say you are selling consumer durable, let's say you're selling consumer durable, large tickets, 1 lakh and above, 2 lakhs and above, right? A fridge or something, I don't know. If you have an e-commerce head, okay, who's selling all the fridges through e-commerce websites, right? You know what they're paying for? They're paying for, number one, the margin that, or the commission that a e-commerce retailer charges today. Okay, that could be 20-25%. Then they pay for that e-commerce retailer's ads.
Yeah.
For the right placement.
Amazon.
Okay, otherwise discovery doesn't happen.
From their advertising business.
Yeah. So the discovery doesn't happen if the ad is not there. Your product is not on the top. So your fridge is not showing up. Then third, your fridge has to have that thing delivery by tomorrow. So you're paying for warehousing costs to the e-commerce retailer at the same time. This can amount to 50% of the cost of the. I don't know how much, but that's what I heard. Okay, and so what people are now realizing, boss, this is crazy. I thought I was doing e-commerce, digital. This is not digital. This is just outsourcing, and outsourcing with a humongous dent on our margins, right? So I will ask that retailer, boss, take that fridge, multiply by the number of fridges you've sold, okay, and the cost you paid to the e-commerce player. Can that buy you every MarTech software in the world? Can that buy you every CRM software in the world? Can that buy you the best app technology in the world? Can that buy you the advertising dollars you need to go direct in the world? At a certain scale, at a tipping point, yes.
So you're saying the LGs and the whatever Voltas of the world are likely to head towards their own platform and website, and that's the natural way to go. Fair. I think that's a fairly legit point.
So that's a distribution cost argument.
Telling folks. So now we've got the buy-in from the CMO, the CIO, and the CTO, generally speaking, from a distribution cost angle to move towards digital. Now, in terms of the post-FD side of things, and that's where the lifetime value angle, the retention angle comes into the play. And we mentioned this term around the turf war between the product experience folks and the marketing folks in some sense, because it's the app real estate we're talking about. And we'd also talked about the subject of growth in some sense. So why don't you go a little deeper into how you define growth, and you had some thoughts, pretty strong opinions around that. So let's just hear them out.
I think growth over the last 5 years with the venture capital just running amok has become a slightly, has lost its meaning, right, to a certain extent. So growth is not about getting, okay, like we spoke about acquisition. Growth is not about getting the customer in, Apple has downloaded, great, my job is done. As we said, account opening or downloading of a quick commerce app or a food delivery app does not mean money for the company.
Sure.
Right? The usage and retention means money, right? So what are you growing really? And marketers must ask themselves, right? We are growing profit. We are not growing anything else but profit. Okay, to grow profit, you have to have customers who are active with you for a long time, right? Because the customer acquisition cost is X today in the market, especially with the VC funds going nuts. They just went
All those
to the
sitting
roof.
inside a listed company, profitable, long-term plays, ROI-based questions and decisions, and you're like sitting there watching all these guys do all of this.
Yeah, so like any what they call traditional companies were going and thinking, okay, why should I? Am I even able to compete here, right? Because these are listed profitable companies. You can't say that now I'll go and compete with someone who has absolutely, I mean, hate to use this word, but accountability, because they are chasing growth, which they define as how many users can I onboard, how quickly, right? Sometimes it's an exit play. It is not even a play of saying I'll always have shares in this company. When can I exit, right? So then obviously it's about inflating the value of the company, which you all know. But again, so that because we're talking about retention, right? We must always understand growth is not about acquisition, getting the customer in. Growth is about retaining, which in turns into profit, and we are in the business of growing profit.
Fair
not
enough.
Getting a new customer in who's going to try you once and then forget about you because you give a cashback. In fintech, let's look at it, right? You give a cashback, customer came, is a discount shopper. Came in,
Sure.
once the cashback is gone, bye-bye. Thank you.
So you touched upon something which I would love to zoom into. You mentioned the customer being a discount shopper, which is a persona. So when you try to scale beyond a certain speed, you will end up probably compromising somewhere on the quality and nature of customers you're getting. You want everybody in because you want to grow at a certain pace. And that's where I would love to zoom into that, as a more conscious marketer who cares about profit, who cares about the longer picture. How do you now define your play in terms of acquisition in one sense? Because you might want to be more calibrated there, and choice of channels, choice of messaging, choice of segments might be different. And then from there onwards, how this affects your segmentation and communication play on either the application or the experience on all the messaging channels you have. How does the segmentation part play out?
So today we know who's a new customer who has been acquired in the last few days. What is the depth of relationship with us?
Okay.
That we know, right? The problem typically happens in activating that knowledge, right? How do you seamlessly activate it without bombarding the customer, right? Because there are multiple channels, and I will even go like if you're a bank, it's even more complex. I'll tell you why. Because if you go to a retailer, if you go to like a Nature's Basket, right? You will not care what you bought in the Nature's Basket app, and the guy at the counter, at the checkout counter, knowing, okay, sir, you bought that yesterday. That's not, you don't expect it, and it's fair enough, right? You don't care. Bank, you do care. What I did on net banking yesterday, I have a problem. If I walk into a branch, I want to tell you, boss, this happened yesterday. That guy better know, and they do know, right? So the omni-channel that we speak about is very, very complex in a bank. Right? It's inbound, outbound, physical, digital, feet on street, so on and so forth. Right. So coming back to your question, this retention, knowing at what life stage you are and what to sell to you, or how to solve your problems, how to service you better, is something that is a humongous task to stitch. Because as you can imagine, these are typically at least 20 brand name technologies in a company. Feet on street, branch, the phone banking guy, the outbound, inbound. Outbound is different, inbound is different, web, mobile.
And you have those RMs who have their own goals and their targets, and they also need to be assisted.
Exactly.
So let's zoom in from your dashboards or things that you care about. You did mention that you've now a growth role in some sense. So what does that change mean for you, and what is it the KPIs or metrics that you're tracking on a frequent basis?
So the number one thing I track is what is the cost of acquiring a customer, not a new customer, but selling them an additional product.
Okay.
Right.
And because this is a cost structure, because, I mean, we'll get to that. You can complete the other pieces and I'll get to this.
So because if you are able to get a customer to take an additional product, you are humongously impacting their lifetime value for you.
Sure.
At the end of the day, that is pure profit. Because and again, just to give an example outside of banking so people can understand. Today, when you came here, or anyone in the room came here, let's say in a cab, okay, they opened everything at the same time. Ola, Uber, InDrive, what else is there? Whatever. And they said, okay, uska acha hai, yeah? And then you take that one. I do the same thing as well.
Sure.
Right? This behavior has to change. For a bank also. people typically have 3 bank accounts. I mean, it's a completely understood thing, right, in the market. We all know it. Anyone who's salaried, anyone who has enough income, every bank is dying to have you as their primary account, right? So if you are able to acquire a customer for an additional product, let's say you have a fixed deposit, then someone sold you a credit card, right? So you're coming again to pay your credit card every month or see your points or see whatever. Then when you come to do that, there is even more cross-sell opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Because banks are digital, right? So every time one additional product is being given to a customer with a particular lifespan, a loan lasts 5 years, a card lasts 5 years, right? That lifespan of engagement, if it is good, you are then able to sell them, let's say, retirement planning, insurance, something, investments.
So
right?
let's go through one customer's journey in your system. Somebody got acquired and there are multiple inbound or let's say paths to get acquired. Most people enter your system through what? I mean, let's get to the current ecosystem. They would be entering through a savings account, or what would be the most important entry point?
Savings account, corporate salary account, right?
So let's go through the corporate salary account and zoom into what happens in this customer's journey in the course of, let's say, the next 5 years. So user A has a corporate salary account with you, just newly created. He's probably in his first job and his salary is now coming to your bank every month. Now, what happens from here?
So banks categorize, because we're discussing corporate salary, they're corporate as a B, C, D, and so and so forth.
It's a company.
It's a company. Okay. Company classification. So if you're A, you tend to get benefits earlier.
Okay.
If you're C, you tend to get benefits at slightly later.
And this is how the banking system entirely operates. It's not a digital versus offline thing. It's how banking
operates, because it's a risk thing, right?
Sure.
See, giving a loan and a card is easy.
Yeah. But
getting it back is very difficult,
yeah.
right? So you better you have to be careful, right?
Sure.
You can't obviously just give anyone anything and then then not be able to recover it back.
Sure. Right. And this is when you're still in competition with 5 other people who are probably wanting the same attention. So
absolutely. There are the 5 other people. So you obviously can't take too much risk with money if it doesn't come back. Anyway, so if you can open an account, you get, the moment you step into your induction, okay, in your new organization, they'll tell you, sir, we have accounts with these banks. You should always take whatever your HR recommends, because the HR has negotiated good stuff for you. Credit card kaun sa milega, loan, interest rate benefit is there or not. So they will give you that, right? But obviously they don't take it, it is only stated that this is the benefits. So then you will say, okay, I will open the account. Then salary will get credited for a few months. Then if that happens, that will happen typically if your payment experience, the debit card you get along with it, works well, has good benefits. So you'll say, okay, my salary should go to this bank, so I will swipe it more. I'll keep on using this. The mobile banking experience has to be good. You'll say, okay, I will migrate my other bill payments, which were set up on auto, to this bank because I can do it easily on the app. Otherwise, you won't. And this is the biggest reason for people don't churn.
Yeah,
they stick to a bank for 20 years.
Yeah, there's so much already set up.
There's too much work to be done, right, to migrate everything. Your loan payments are going through another bank, so on and so forth. So if you say, again, retention, this is one of the biggest hooks in banks.
So that's what I'm going to zoom into now. That's where the reason to get into a user journey is to actually look at what is it that is happening organically and where nudges help, right? So I'm a big fan of rightly timed nudges in all shapes and sizes. So you're saying now this guy has got his salary in his account for the first time. Now, in terms of marketing interventions or from a communication standpoint, what would be your set of interventions that are happening in this journey?
We will always push towards getting some sort of a recurring payment done, like a bill payment.
Somehow everybody wants me to pay my electricity bills, right? Credit
Why?
wants me to do that, Airtel wants me to do that, Paytm wants me to do that, my bank wants me to do that. That's because the stickiness will be high.
It is the stickiness of it, and no one can then take you away.
Sure.
Right?
So you'll basically want, as a new corporate salaried account, you want me to set up some of the payments. Now, would you incentivize this behavior? Is that the cost you're talking about? One additional product sold and that's the cost?
The industry has done it in the past. For example, some voucher and all. In the industry, bank industry, I know, when I was in other banks, they used to be. But again, that is discount hunter behavior. You're pandering to the discount hunter. So people have stopped doing that. So
that's the nature of competition, no?
Yeah. I know, but I think it should. I think the bigger holistic picture is that the app experience has to be good, So it's easy for you to
after a
do
point,
it.
isn't that like by and large everyone offering somewhat similar level of experience? I mean, how far can you go with that?
No, it is about how do you nudge the customer with the right advice. For example, if your salary comes in, you are of a particular corporate, right? And you have a particular income range. You have a particular demographic. There's enough data
Data
science.
points available, yeah.
The data science enough to know what is it that you would be interested in, right? So it is not about the nudge being there at the right time, but it is also of the right nature.
Right content, right?
Because
Purpose.
exactly, bank has a huge amount of customer data. So if you
I don't
use
know,
that,
are you able to put it all of it to use?
yes,
Good amount of it.
data science stack can churn out data saying this customer has to be pitched this all the time. And it's data science. So as you know, data science is very, very effective as long as you have the data.
Yeah.
Banks thankfully are blessed with data, right? So you can figure out what to nudge a customer with. Is it a electricity bill payment? Maybe a recurring deposit? So on and so forth, right? So people figure out very, very easily, if they have the right data science stack at the back, what to pitch.
So the assumption is people have the right data science stack at the back, which I'm not sure if everyone's completely done that already.
Everyone is, I mean, look,
It's
maturity curve.
It's a journey.
Yeah,
sure.
it's a maturity curve. And not everyone obviously is going to be at the highest end of the maturity curve.
This is a journey, that's okay.
Yeah, which is always a journey. But that is absolutely necessary at the back end. You can't orchestrate something dumb, right? Or something that is not well
One
thought
size
through.
fits all. I mean,
Exactly.
if you don't have the data set, then you're probably selling the same thing to everyone, which is irrespective of their demographic, their salary level, the company they're employed with. So if I were to think from a segmentation perspective, now let's just say that you have A, B, C, D kind of companies. You have within each company 5 levels of salary brackets. And so this becomes 5 into 5, 25 different segments in some sense. And then you have some sort of a feedback that, okay, this group of people responds better to this kind of nudge. So this guy needs to get his electricity bill. This guy probably has a postpaid phone, so those bills should start coming in. And that's where the entire messaging kind of starts coming in.
Yes. So that is where stickiness can slowly start building in.
So now some people will cross over. They'll do whatever that configuration you want them to do. A bunch of people may not. So how does this journey now go forward? So you'll have passed, okay, I'm going to try 3, 4, 5 times to get him to do this. How do you decide?
Yeah, then you switch over. And again, it's not about counting the number of interventions on a channel. Do it across channels and count that. If the threshold is crossed, stop it. Move to the next one. Right?
Okay.
And of course, there are certain users who will need more time to react, who are just not very techno-savvy, don't read emails.
Yeah.
So what can you do, right? So they will not react to you, right? So yeah, it takes more time, but go out to all the channels with the same message. By the way, going to all channels with the same message is very, very effective.
Yeah.
Because people realize, either bhi dekha, udhar, this must be important, right? That's the first thing I've learned.
But do you see this in terms of different kind of audiences?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if I was being bombarded with the same message across 5 channels, I'll get a little bit annoyed. But maybe that's me. And maybe that's like a small little segment which is expecting you to know what channels I work with.
No, you're assuming all outbound channels. I'm saying even inbound. So
yeah,
outbound
the app experience.
Yeah, even outbound plus inbound is not intrusive.
Sure.
Outbound is, right? So it is about being able to play Consistency really works.
Oh, so you're saying from a messaging standpoint, at one point of time, only try to do one thing with the user. Don't sell him an FD here and a loan here and a banking, whatever, automated payment somewhere else. So in this, so what we're saying then is for the user life cycle journey, if he's entered the bank journey at certain point, the first phase of this journey will try to sell him the same thing across channels.
Absolutely.
So your app experience will say the same thing, and your emails will say the same thing, and your messages, if at all they're going into, will say the same thing. Does your call center also say the same thing?
That is at times, but at times no. Right? So
that's because the technology or the process, or what is it that
it is a mix of technology, process, people orientation, and
but you would like to get there.
That is the end game. That is the end game. That is the end game, including a branch walk-in.
So now people are at different stages, right? I did turn on this, but I did not turn on that. So you would want me to turn on, let's say, what, a minimum of 3 bill payments. And when do you switch over to a loan, how do you decide that now it's time to switch over to selling a credit card?
So selling a credit card is a function of how long you've been active, as I said, right? If your salary has not come for long enough, it is the lower the salary, the longer.
I thought at least as far as the A organizations and the A tier.
Yeah, they will get it. They will get it.
Day zero.
They will get it. But see, in India, it is a pyramid, right?
So
that's not where the majority bottom is where the fortune is, right? So So because of that, you have to be retained long
But you
enough.
will have a PAN card and you will have the civil history any which way. So you will incorporate that or not at this stage?
You can do it. You can CIBIL obviously is scrubbed. The moment you open an account, we have the consent to check your CIBIL and so on and so. But typically, it will take you a few months to become eligible for a paperless version of it, right?
Okay.
A paperless version of a card, like okay, you're approved. Take a loan, click here, 10 seconds done. It's in your account, right?
Oh, it's taken me 20 years with that. Just don't know shit.
No. It's maybe again, it's not because it's because maybe they are not
They don't
underwriting
wanna
you
take risk.
properly.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
If you've been
Either
with a-
I seem risky or whatever. So anyway, back to this now. So paperless credit card in terms of instant approval will take time because my risk score in their system is still low, and they want to gather more data before.
Maybe you've
they
been
can
you've
do
been
anything.
you've been naughty
I
and you've
might
been
have
putting your money
pulling
for
out
like salary day, you've been just shoving it to another bank,
Something.
right? So if you do that, the other bank, wherever you take the money out from on day one, they will not give you the benefit because
Fair.
yeah.
So now you have. So what I'm trying to understand now is, the complexity of segmentation can be quite insane. You have 5 tiers of companies within which you have 5 tiers of salaries, and now you have people at different behavior levels. This guy's put one automated payment. This guy's got a credit card, and credit card have 5 tiers as well. It's starting to get really, really fragmented now in some sense, and you're operating at a scale of millions of users.
Yes.
So how do you deal with this complexity on a practical operational level?
I think we largely leave it to data science, right, to a large extent, saying which is the customer segment who will qualify for this pitch, right?
But
it's
there'll be
retention-
overlaps, no? There'll be khichdi.
Absolutely, there are overlaps, but your marketing activation systems have to keep the capping, right? They have to say,
In
okay,
terms of frequency of
frequency
messages
and-
or
yeah.
choice of message, which is the more important message?
I think first frequency and then choice is a derivation of like A/B testing, right?
What's more valuable?
What works better? And again, then when you A/B tested, it comes back to the same data science saying, okay, for this segment, this kind of messaging works, right? So it's a loop back. Obviously, data science is always a loop back, right?
But so how many people have you deployed in managing these communications if you were to do this from
We have
a
a-
people process level?
We have an 80-member data science team.
Data science will give
Yeah.
you the outcome of this segment, this message.
We have 120 people, like 200 people in marketing, right? So everyone is why? Because
This is all
there is-
digital marketing?
this is any marketing tool is digital, right? I mean, yeah, it's sure.
There'll be offline
There's
branches
retail as well.
and
Yes, of
whatever.
course. There's retail as well, but there are hundreds of people at the back of this
So
because
there
the
is a
segmentation
large
is so
number of
huge.
people.
Yeah.
So this is where I was trying to understand, so when I was looking at Foodpanda Global CRM system, now Foodpanda is like a 45 country operation back then, of course, and there was 25 odd time zones, that many languages. So to deal with automation at that scale, and food is a local business, which means if you're sitting in BKC right now, I can't send you a notification about a restaurant in Churchgate. It's not going to deliver to you. So at one point when I entered the game, the only thing we could do was Domino's buy one, get one to the entire country of India, because that's the only offer which has that kind of geographic footprint. Anything else is not relevant to the guy in Delhi versus Bombay or whatever. Even within Bombay, you will not have relevance. So only way we could scale personalization across all this ecosystem was by automation, because there's no way I can have that kind of an army. Maybe HDFC could afford it, I could not. And hence I'm trying to understand that when you look at this whole structure, one is, are there structural owners or profit owners or whatever outcome owners in the marketing function that your job is to move this segment from here to here? How do you organize this?
Yeah. So there's clear demarcation between, of course, communication is one set, right? And there's acquisition, okay? There is onboarding, and then there is retention, like even churn management, right? Across the board, there have to be teams with different mandates.
Correct.
They use the same systems. The Marcom team services all of them, right? But there are teams with different KPIs, right? Some teams only have acquisition. How much loan have I disbursed in this month or today or in the last 30 minutes? By the weekend, we track last 30 minutes also.
So I am actually now trying to draw parallels with conversation with Swiggy, where Anush told us that Anush from Swiggy, he leads growth, I think, there. So what he told us was, within Swiggy, once somebody comes in as a consumer, there is food, there is Instamart, there is Zini, then there is more services. Now they have Dine Out as well. So the cross-pollination of services is actually an interesting topic, and each team has their own charter on, once a guy is in your ecosystem, what do you do? And there's a team which has a charter on how do you move him across. So I see a fairly similar kind of play. Of course, you have a much larger, let's say, number of offerings in that sense.
Yeah.
Because you have loans, you have the credit cards, various tiers and all of that as well. So just give me a bit of sense on how the journey of a customer plays from team to team perspective. At what point does this team hand over this guy to somebody else, or does somebody own the customer's entire life cycle as a segment, or how do you organize
So this is the next challenge in marketing and MarTech especially, because people have now figured out There's a customer journey, and you can track it, in some sort of a data visualization, right? So most companies are verticalized. Most companies, as
When
we
you say
know.
verticalized, you mean
Like,
loan is loan,
yeah,
FD is
loan,
FD, credit card
correct,
is credit card.
correct. So even I am challenging that view, right? And I think some of the international banks have got this arrangement.
So are you saying that the loan guy might try to sell me the loan around the same time as when the credit card guy is still trying to sell me the credit card? Is that a
No,
reality?
the marketing automation will suppress it, right?
But so somebody will win, somebody will lose, depending on what the logic or data science is.
Yeah.
Is that how it
Yeah,
is?
yeah. So if you want a loan, right? There are multiple ways. At the end of the day, loan means what? You want money.
Money in the bank.
You can take money many ways, right? I can give you a cash loan.
Sure.
You have a credit card. The limit of the credit card can be cashed out as well,
Yeah, of course.
right? Simple. And there is very interesting consumer behavior, right? People will take a loan, okay, to pay the credit card outstanding. They do that. RBI has banned it now because people are people. Money is money at the end of the day.
They do whatever they can to optimize.
Exactly. We call it rationalization of their own credit, but that's a very tricky term.
From a people standpoint, you said you have a super large data science team. Now, data science team is structured how? Would they look at, again, verticalized mechanisms that I need to
Verticalization
optimize?
is
KPI is a complex one, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a single person owning a cohort of customers' eventual lifetime value. You have different people who have different things to sell to the same guy.
Yeah.
And how do you resolve this conundrum?
This is something that is unresolved. Yeah.
So people are thinking about it, but
Yes.
still there's no answer established, so to speak. Do you have a proposed answer to this?
The proposed answer is very simple, that there has to be a customer segment that has to be owned by a team which cross-functional,
Cross-vertical.
cross-functional people. So the way the organization, the HR in the HRMS, there is a verticalization, right, which we have not solved for yet. But we solve for it in different ways. So there's a pod, there's a tribe, pod, tribe, all that, stuff that.
But these are more like parallel structures.
These are
organized
unofficial structures. That's how we try to solve it, right?
As of now.
And it's a transition period. I think in most organizations where they are doing this. So marketing pods have everyone.
But this would have a lot of issues in terms of structural changes, which might make some people borderline insecure because their roles, power equations might change.
Obviously.
Lots of things will change, right?
Your written down KRA was written some 5 years ago, and the pods came in 3 years ago. So then what? It is a conflict, right? It's very simple, and it's confusing. So it is again. So it is about, and that is also a challenge. How do you reward people?
Because suddenly also, so the KPIs is a challenge. The other part is the skill sets are also a challenge. Not everybody is able to think in that same direction that you need them to think, no?
So when you democratize data, right? So when the dashboards that we built are there for everyone.
Is it so?
Yes, it's for everyone.
But you're saying that there's a lot of transparency then made available, but same dashboard for everyone.
No.
Data is available now. You can surface it in whatever fashion.
But to my understanding, there is no such thing as MIS anymore. Okay, it is data is available for you to play around with, make your own visualization. It's completely DIY. So that's it, and it becomes a very interesting one because you'll see
extremely powerful at the same time, borderline dangerous in some sense.
No, it is. But it's not customer data. It just
of course identifiable.
Yeah,
but
so you can
from a power that can unlock.
That's crazy power.
And this is available to what? The whole 200 marketers, the whole 80
even I give it outside marketing also. Please see.
What kind
see.
of insights can you bring in from here and what?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. It is an interesting thing, right? So you will see like a pure play person who's doing segmentation and blast messaging get better insights than data science teams.
Because
you democratize data, because you can do it. It's DIY, right? Because they are trying to solve a target problem. My target is this. I have to do whatever the hell I need to do to get my target done, right? Correct. So they are getting into the data and like figuring out little slivers of opportunity.
Yeah, because there's so many targets.
Yeah,
and it's probably wedding season somewhere in India, and those guys will probably need loans at personal accounts to do something. And this is a micro segment you've identified, and you can get like numbers to move. So that's what I was beginning to wonder, because now you have all of these millions of segments who need different communications. Each of these communications will also have variables around credit limit being given, the amount of loan value being given, the kind of loan. So there's a home loan, there's a property loan, there's this loan, there's that loan, there's all of these different products to be sold, right? So you have 25 things that you could say to a customer, but you can only say one.
That's
You can
the-
only choose one at a time, right? And there's a journey in terms of what would be the appropriate answer. Is it already a case for AI to start playing a role, and where does it currently stand in your scheme of things? It's too complex to handle manually anyway.
I would believe that it is a mix of AI and people, because while AI can figure out what to sell to you, but in a responsible organization, there has to be humans manning it. Otherwise, you will become, social media where, people are overburdened with loans.
So you're
because I've
saying
been able to figure out a way to just
if
give
you
you.
leave AI, it will become irresponsibly too good for the consumer to kind of not take that loan, and you'll eventually spoil the whole. But AI is supposed to be thinking of
So basically, see, people have a tendency, right, in financial services especially, to overburden themselves. Like credit card, like paying the minimum amount every month, right?
But I would imagine the right AI to also know the repayment capabilities and histories and do that.
Sure. So AI is definitely see, there are two sides. Okay, there's AI is the end all be all end all of everything, and we are all
I'm
unemployed.
not sure we're there yet. Obviously, there's still a long way to go before this can become enough mainstream to take over this whole play. But it seems to be like a situation where it's enough complexity now available to be beyond human play. But the scale at which you're saying that this is 80 people in data science and 200 people in marketing, all of them sitting behind and running the same. So you have somebody kind of doing what, 200 different email templates for you in some sense?
No, when it comes to creative, when it comes to figuring out at what time of the day to go to someone, that's completely automated, and the system learns automatically, right? So there's a machine learning there by default.
Send time, end time is
that's the standard stuff.
Is not commoditized.
Yeah, this is all standard stuff. But if you say that to this customer, I will say this on this day with this creative, okay, no, that's something that
still needs a judgment.
It still needs some amount of judgment.
So in fact, one thing interesting we were trying to do was play around with the risk score based interest rates to loans. I don't know if your system's there yet, but let's say if I'm offering you a loan at 13% and you're not taking it, can I offer you at 11%? Maybe then you will take it.
Yes, we do.
Is your system able to do that yet?
So what we do is we pricing, right? Pricing is always been there in e-commerce. Now pricing, because of the systems that we have deployed, and there's a threshold, there's a sensitivity analysis you can do. Will my actual loan that is going out will increase by what quantum, and what will be my average interest rate if I discount it too much? So this sensitivity analysis has to be is very, very clear in terms of
this whole risk modeling play where you have all of this data about a customer and you're putting that into a risk
it's a business call. It's a business call.
Sure. So what I'm trying to understand is now this is a product experience on the screen, right? Where I'm seeing this message, and this experience has been designed by the marketing folks in some sense. Now, how do these guys interface and make this happen? Very simple. For this audience, show him a variation with 15% loan and show him a variation with 13% loan and see what the option is.
No. So let me explain. It's slightly different. Okay, so here's the journey. How does the journey go? Okay, the journey is very simple. First, like say you have a product person who builds credit card, who runs loans.
So in your world, the product guy is the credit card guy, the loan guy.
Yeah, so but financial product, not the technology product. Like there's obviously a product team that does the mobile app and all. The financial product guys, first they are like, okay, my product sells in the branch. I give a direct sales agent. He calls up and sells. Phone banking sells. Then marketing comes in, change the mindset. Digital is there. It can you as marketing, we make a dent in their overall distribution. So our pie keeps getting higher slowly. Okay. Then they realize the pie, every card sold or every loan sold with digital is 1/10 of the cost. Like, wow. Then they start noticing.
So they have some sort of an MIS to tell them that this is actually the real cost.
Yes.
Okay.
And they can tell, okay, I can. So their P&L gets positively impacted if they give.
One is to build this whole data stack to have that kind of visibility at that granular level, and two, the maturity to appreciate this is quite feats. Right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Are you saying that HDFC in some sense has been culturally attuned to these kind of practices? That
HDFC Bank has always been a very profitable company because I'm sure you are an investor.
Yeah.
You've been benefited over the last few years with great return on your investment. So this the underlying culture actually is similarly around how to drive profitability, not just internally but also for the customer. So anyway, it's a loop. As
I'm just what I'm trying to say here is in terms of if there's somebody else in another company who has to look at this kind of a end state or at least intermittent state, which is a one step forward from here, which is where the state of retention marketing, right? So HDFC Bank is operating at a certain level of maturity. Now there are people here and there are people here. So before HDFC Bank and after HDFC Bank, there's a maturity. And that's what I was going to ask as a follow-up question, that in your journey, you have described a bunch of things which are there already in place, and there is an aspiration to make it more customer-oriented, and that would need a lot of organizational structuring because you have to dissolve the vertical structures in some sense. But in your mindset, from a technology, data, AI implementation perspective, what are the next frontiers looking like? Where do you want to evolve next?
People have to evolve to appreciate the fact that the customer experience is not where we would like it to be, right?
But there'll be different maturity curves.
Yeah,
as well,
agree.
right?
But that mindset has to come first. You have to realize that there is a problem for you to be able to take one step towards
Isn't
solve
that kind of, given that you link it to profitability in the larger play in the competitive ecosystem, it's bound to happen. So those who don't adapt will end up struggling anyway, right?
That's the internal selling. That's the internal selling that you have to do to change the mindset. Saying this is more profitable, please get on this train. If you don't get on this train, then
so this is a message to all those let's say marketing or technology enthusiasts which are in companies which are still, let's say, mindset level struggling with going forward, taking big investments or leaps forward. That's your message, right? It's a survival thing, it's not a hobby thing.
It is. See, now the audience here is marketeers, right? The message to marketeers is what, right? Marketeers are not awareness centers. Marketeers are not creative centers. Marketeers are profit centers. Okay, that is the message. And if a marketeer is a profit center, then you have a P&L, then you have a input cost that you can look at beyond marketing communications or media spends or ad spend. One input cost is actually MarTech spends or technology spends. Why is that justified? Because technology spends bring down the cost of distribution, right? So if an e-commerce guy sets up an app, gets fulfillment done, and then advertises, he has a full P&L end to end.
Sure.
Right? Similarly, banking, set up the fulfillment, make a website, make an app, personalize it. You have a complete end-to-end P&L. And that P&L, right, is every marketeer's
suddenly weapon. Much more important, right?
Yeah, you are suddenly you're saying, okay, I'm a marketeer second, I'm a revenue person first. My marketing is trying to solve for revenue problems.
And that's a side of, let's say, motivation/education that marketers would need to go through to be able to have that kind of larger impact on their businesses, which they're technically capable of having on the business.
You have to be ambitious. You have to be ambitious because see, marketing evolved. Like if you look at what Mad Men, right? Advertising, right? Oh, wow, right? But if you pick up a Kotler, advertising is only one of the levers.
So frontier one is marketers taking greater ownership of P&L. What happens from a tech/data standpoint? We spoke about AI a little bit, and the large army of people that's currently doing this might get, let's say, more powerful by the use of AI-driven intelligence. Because right now there's one guy sitting on a set of data and drawing out some insights, and there's a lot more that's possibly available which AI can churn out for you. Yeah. So that's what's your sequence of things in your roadmap that in the next 3 years, this is where I expect this to be.
So next 3 years, it has to then go into the right structuring of the organizations with the right KPIs, right? So one guy will just focus on bringing the customer in. Okay, there's one team. Okay, there's one team, one horizontal, so not a horizontal, but one vertical that just does that.
New customers, completely new to the bank.
Completely new to the bank. Then second, customers get the stickiness going, right? Get the customer active.
Across all segments.
Across all segments.
So when there's stickiness, you mean to say which products work for him, it's up to this team to figure out.
Doesn't matter.
As whatever products work for him, just get him from level 0 to level 1.
Usage.
Okay.
Pure usage. Okay. Then third is cross-sell. But cross-sell in a sequence. Not cross-sell because that is your KRA, I'll cross-sell this. Then, like you said, now everyone's cross-selling everything at the same time.
So you're telling me with the whole cross-selling side of things being a Lerem York which would cross-sell anything and everything that's available, how would that structure then play from there?
This is nothing new for organizations today. If you look at e-commerce, my favorite example, there'll be category managers, right? They sell one category as a unit. Now you have to think, right? There's a sequence in which you buy, right? If you buy a mattress, you'll probably buy a pillow as well, right? But that's a single category manager. But if you're setting up your bedroom, I'm sure you're buying a table lamp.
Perhaps.
Or are you buying a bedside clock or an air conditioner, right? These are different categories. But are they in sync is the question we must ask. Banking has the same problem.
Point you're saying is verticalized category structures don't allow for this cross-category thought process to come in. So the bundles / cross-selling opportunities are not seen in that light of cross-category plays. And this has to break.
This has to break going forward in traditional as well as digital first organizations, including e-commerce.
What would this mean for the people and their roles and the KPIs? What happens to the guy who's a category manager now? He becomes irrelevant, or what happens with him?
No, you become journey managers. You become segment managers. You become someone who's just started shopping with your organization versus someone who's highly mature and has to be upgraded to very, very complex products or buying patterns.
Customer segment becomes owners, and to increase the profit value or contribution or whatever you call it from this customer cohort is now somebody's KPI. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. So, I mean, that is what I would think, is that you are owner of a particular cohort, be it a segment or a life stage, and you are seamlessly handing that cohort, the extremity of
Whatever
that cohort,
he cares.
to the next owner.
Yeah, so there'll be handshake points where if you've sold him a loan, your job is done, now hand it over to the guy who picks it up from here. From a process standpoint, from an ownership standpoint, from a KPI standpoint, your job was to move these guys from where they are to where they need to be. And once that is done, and they might move in 5 different directions, once they've moved in 5 different directions, then their owners also change in some sense.
Absolutely. So in a banking, let's put it this way, again, thinking out loud, you could be, let's continue with our corporate salary example. Let's say you've joined Infosys, right? You've joined there, and you've got your brand new debit card from HDFC Bank, so on and so forth. We nudge you. Please start doing bill payments. You're early jobbers, obviously. You got a phone on an EMI. We buy everything on EMI then. So we give you a credit card to enable that, right? But then slowly over time, we have to tell you, boss, please start saving some money, do an investment or two. So that's another gang. That's another cohort saying, okay, this is an early jobber, but he has now acquired just about everything in terms of consumption. So please nudge them towards what is beneficial to them also, is start saving a little bit.
Okay. Give them insurance.
Yeah, or give them an insurance, right? And then get them into some sort of investment behavior around mutual funds, trading.
So this is predominantly linked to customer life cycle and evolution, right? So there might be people entering from different, let's say, gates, so to speak, and they might have different graduation paths.
Yes.
And each of these paths has different stages.
Yes.
So your ideal marketing org would be, let's say, the whole matrix of different entry points and different stages. So for each entry point in each stage, there's somebody who owns that particular stage.
Yes.
And then that's where the whole org works. And
your goal is to graduate the customer to the next, not keep them in that stage or that state.
That's how you benefit the customer as well as the company in some sense. Right?
Absolutely, because
both people win.
Yeah, most products or services companies are there for customers' benefit, right? We're not there to.
That truly sounds very transformative, right? If you think about it, if you're able to achieve this kind of an outcome, which is going to need to break a lot of current org structures and all of that also, then that seems like, to me, a reasonably good nirvana state, so to speak, right now. I say nirvana because it's still several steps away and it's not going to be an easy change to make. There's just a lot of top-down play that might need to happen to make this happen.
Yes, but
do you see somebody doing this meaningfully yet?
The argument is very simple, which everyone understands: profit. Right?
Sure, but somebody who's got it and is actually making this shift anywhere in e-commerce or here.
For the longest time, airlines have been doing it through loyalty programs, right?
They don't have that many things to sell after the point.
Exactly. So they have so constrained. They have to have a loyalty program because they got so fragmented with the whole Make My Trips of the world or Booking.coms of the world. They had no choice but to leverage. Because they were the first guys to get first to get disrupted in the internet.
Because they had those upgrades to offer, those benefits to offer, so that's where loyalty made sense. But now, given the way the industry is fragmented, you have a few market share plays, and there's not as much delta in terms of whether I care about an airline versus the other. So Jet had a loyalty program which worked great, but I don't think anybody else has been able to pull off anything similar to that.
I think Vistara is getting started now. I quite enjoy that.
It's going to get messed up.
Okay.
But
coming to the question, so someone buying a credit card from another bank and doing fixed deposit with you and buying insurer direct from a new age insurer,
not the reality.
I mean, that is the scary part for anyone who's looking at a P&L. Okay.
But that's also the reality, right? An average guy has at least 3 bank relationships, And now there are people who are the Creds of the world and the Airtels of the world who also want me to make the bill payments from there. So as a consumer, I also don't know how fragmented my play looks like because I paid here, this guy's still reminding me what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's a little messy as far as the customer experience is concerned. But this is a great strategic top-level view on how orgs have to move in that direction. So while I'm a big fan of good strategic thinking, I also like the whole tactical side of things in terms of interventions. So when you talk about intervention, then we spoke about how each category owner tries to do his own input. From a process standpoint and from a people standpoint, we had vertical category heads who want to sell their thing. How do you KPI this out? How do you say that, okay, this is your goal and you have to sell more loans and this is the kind of data that you have available. You can pick and choose whatever segment you want to go out to and whatever loans you want to sell to them. And there is somebody controlling the messaging frequency, which has to have priorities because you can't send more than X number of communications. So how does that play out?
So I don't have a definite answer for this one, but I think if you're looking at cohorts and graduating people from one cohort to the other cohort, obviously the number of people you're graduating each month or each in finance it will be like each quarter because
back to the present scenario in terms of how currently it's operated with those 80 data science folks, the 200 marketing folks. The organization would have KPIs and directions to move in for each of them, right? Each of them has, you're a large org, so you have to have those KPIs and org structures in place. So when they care about, and what are the channels that you're currently deploying? One is the messaging style and the channel ownership, because if the same message has to go to the same user across all channels, then it can't be that the prioritization logic for different channels is different.
So that is where I think there is some sense in building a personalization as a horizontal, right? And I think I can see the examples in international banks. So because it is every team has a KPI of doing getting X value out of a customer, right?
Sure.
But if you don't have a horizontal that controls the activation part, which is the messaging sending out and curating what works best through A/B testing, then I think slowly what is happening, personalization is a shared service across the board.
Sure.
So if let's say if I'm a owner of a cohort and I need to go out and do something X for a customer, that personalization horizontal typically will know for this cohort this messaging works better. Why don't you try this? Rather than that person, let's say a new hire, you will keep on trying new things from scratch.
Yeah, so the personalization has two elements to it. One is just the language and whatever messaging and kind of things, and the other part is which is the product to send to him, right? Because there is a large variety of products available. One of them would be the most relevant right now. So are you saying that at this point, given the current state of affairs, how you manage it, how is it being done? What is the most appropriate action? And is there a data science logic that will decide that if there are 25 things to sell to this guy, this is the next best action. Try to do this. At some point, this is a threshold. Cut it off and move on to the next thing. How does this implement?
So the next best product is something that most organizations have now figured out.
Okay.
Right? But next best action in terms of intervention or next best communication, what to say, is something that is still difficult in organizations. Because your entire ecosystem is fragmented. And if you look at a typical MarTech landscape, in an organization, there'll be like a bunch of different tools talking to each other, right?
Correct. So, and not always talking to each other as well.
Yeah. So typically single customer view exists in terms of your relationship, in terms of your relationship with an organization, the number of products, how many times you've taken them, basically CRM.
Yeah.
It's fairly centralized. What you are, because MarTech and AdTech is so spread out, what you're doing on each channel, okay, is typically in different silos. Integrating it together and harmonizing what you say across is still a challenge in most organizations, and that's something I also deal with a lot.
So you're saying the channels still don't necessarily talk to each other. One in terms of and that's where I was curious about when you have, let's just look at the salaried guy again, and you have now a stage where he's probably been working for a few years. He might want to invest in a piece of real estate or a home on one side, and he might just take a stock investment on the other side, and you have all of these different options that you can present to him. Now, what is the right option to present? Because the category owner for this guy versus the category owner for this guy is different. And the messaging gateway, which is, you can't send 5 messages, you can send only one. And that gateway is being controlled by somebody else, right? So how does this guy meet his KPI if he's being blocked out from sending messages by the guy who controls the gate to the message?
So yeah, so that's fundamentally what happens. So it's first come, first serve. Because
Really?
capping, the way
First come, first serve?
that's typical.
Wow.
That's a typical state. And how, see, basically whoever is the fastest wins, because the capping will typically
So are you
work.
saying that the customer will end up being pushed towards a service which is being pushed by the most aggressive marketer in some sense?
The most motivated.
The most motivated
The
marketer.
most motivated
Aggressive,
marketer.
motivated.
Most motivated marketer. But at the same time, I think there are slivers of hope that basically every marketer has to have to be going through some sort of a guardrail where someone is saying, okay, this is more profitable for the company, hold this. This is
But that's not my KPI, right? So if I'm the most enthusiastic credit card seller in the company, likelihood is I'll have the majority of customers being upsold credit cards before they're approached by the 1 lakh rupee home loan guy. Is that the reality of life today?
I mean,
I mean, you might
it
name
is
the
not
bank, but
because
that's the reality across the banking
yeah,
ecosystem, right?
because it's at the end of the day, we optimize for profitably. Again, this is where it comes down to marketing being a P&L, right? So I don't say it's strategic,
Sure.
but that strategic guardrail will ensure that you sell the most profitable product with the right media
Yeah, but
spend.
the owner of that profit as a unit, right? That's across categories. And while your entire effort is being driven by category managers, you're verticalized.
I agree
That's
with
the
you.
state of affairs.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
but
So I'm
but
not saying it's a
yeah.
bad situation. I'm saying it's gotten to this point, but obviously there is a journey
No, there
to
is
go
no-
forward as well.
They say it's also a technology problem, right? It's a problem.
Really?
Yes, because um, technology is a means to an end, like we spoke, and the end obviously is your target. So people aggressively invest in technology, right? When you aggressively invest in anything, right, it is not very thoughtful at times.
Which is
right?
exactly
So,
where we see a lot of people adopting fancy tools which they don't necessarily know how to fully leverage.
yeah, because that adoption is again another big giant topic, right? Anyway, so
So on that adoption topic, if I were to ask you a super dumbed down simpler question, would you prefer a fancier tech which struggles with adoption or a relatively simpler tech which moves you from one step to the other?
it depends on your maturity. So you should always start with simpler tech. Always. Don't buy a space shuttle, right? If you are going to go to Andheri.
Space shuttle Andheri.
So buy a nice rickshaw, go to Andheri. But when you're going to the moon, then definitely invest in a space shuttle.
If assuming you have your launch pad in place and you're ready to go
Absolutely.
to the moon, right?
Yeah. And the astronauts ready and the people ready and so on and so forth.
Now, on the adoption front, we did speak about it a little bit, but I would love to have a formal view on it that with all of this new action that's happening with the fintechs who are like digital natives and who don't have the same challenges of the mindset gaps, they probably have the right people who can think data, technology, all of it coming together, doing efficient customer journeys. Maybe the cost of distribution are already low enough. How do you look at this from a strategic viewpoint? Because you're in a public sector, not public sector, listed bank, right? And a profitable one at that. And you want to make sure that this is a long-term game you're playing while these blips will keep coming and going. How do you compete effectively or not bother with the new age fintechs that are coming in?
I think that they'll eventually there'll be coexistence in the
Sure.
future. Like Tesla will never bring down General Motors or a Volkswagen, right? If a Tata has an EV
But
on the road today,
General Motors would come back with an EV and then Tesla would have competition as well.
Tata, our own homegrown big industries that is out there has an EV on the road today. Tesla has not
Sure.
entered the market today, right? So innovation is tricky that way. So people who can do innovation, they can do it at a small scale.
So
You can't
your
distribute
distribution
it.
is
It's
insane,
huge.
right? So,
Yeah, exactly.
But the innovation engine is that much slower, but then you have the advantage of distribution.
Exactly. So it's a battle of distribution versus technology innovation. People who can do innovation at a small scale, great. But can you do it at scale and get it to every corner of this country? That's something that's very, very difficult, right?
Interesting.
So
So are you guys going to shop for some of these things? Do you think that's the path, or do you think it's going to be homegrown? Or
I think
anything
banks
interesting?
will transform very quickly.
Quickly, huh?
Yeah, very quickly, and there is enough enterprise software out there for you to help you transform, right?
Okay.
So it's a very interesting sort of game of chess.
The
right?
new kids will probably have
The
these
new
simple
kids,
questions.
the new kids are trying to evolve financial products. Banks have matured financial products over decades. What banks are weak on is maybe tech a little bit, but there is enough enterprise software out there for you to evolve. Like it's a makeover overnight sort of a thing.
Interesting. So the nimble elephant is the word I would use, right?
Yes.
The guys who are big are not nimble, but when you do decide to move that direction, you can swing one hand and it'll basically sway the
Yeah, implementation chops are required for sure. Project management chops are required for sure. But if that is there is enough and more out there for you to evolve. I'm pretty sure of that. But in the end, both will coexist, right? Like to your original question, fintechs obviously are not going anywhere, right? And banks will have to evolve. It is a question that we have to ask whether all banks will evolve or not. And those who don't, what will happen to them?
Yes, so that's why I'm assuming there'd be a degree of consolidation, but that's anyways too strategic a conversation. You know, enough with banks, enough with industry, Deepak. I'm kind of at the last leg of this conversation, so I'd love to understand your own life as a marketer and as an individual. What are the things you do to keep yourself ahead of the curve from a education perspective, learning perspective? You're wiring up all of this stuff at home, so this is clearly a hobby thing as well in some sense. What are the other hobbies?
So one hobby is right now. Okay, I'll go talk to anyone in the industry, and especially the good ones like yourself, so I can learn something, right? Even having a conversation, at least philosophically, you understand, boss, where is this going, right? And getting asked to present somewhere, I will go and present. Like, because if you are going to sit and stand in front of people and say, boss, I'm going to tell you this, and you don't want to look like a fool, right? So obviously, you do a lot of thinking in the process of when you present something. I also do a lot of socializing in the professional sphere.
Okay.
So a lot of good friends have come out of my professional sort of sphere. Nice. Because then I can pick up the phone to anyone at like midnight and say, I have this problem, can you solve it for me? This problem in this technology area. Okay, yaar, ye kaun karta hai, bata fatafat, I want to know. Right? So to be a good professional, this is one hobby that you must have. Your social circle and your official circle can become sometimes a little blurred. Blurred it will become. Right?
It takes a lot of energy, right?
Yeah.
To be doing this consistently day in and day out.
No, but that's the fun of it, right? You are learning.
So you kind of enjoy that, and hence it makes
curiosity,
it
whether it is this technology marketing and the hybrid world that it is, then of course curiosity, maybe you would want to cook, try new things.
Is that a hobby?
Of course. See, inquisitiveness, curiosity, and that itch is the only ingredients.
What recharges your batteries? Given the amount of energy you spend across so many different topics and so many different things you're dealing with both inside and outside, you're on a mission to educate the bankers now in some sense, right?
Absolutely.
So what gives you that energy?
I mean, it is a sense of pride, number one. Number two, I think banking is an industry where I've now spent about more than a decade, and evolving it with MarTech, with other areas. There's a sense of me saying, boss, this is a fundamental resource, the fundamental service, essential service, and the country is going through some sort of a big transition, right? We're at the cusp of a big transition. Finance is going to obviously play a good role, and finance is going to be made available digitally. Whether it's a fintech or a bank, we can't leave it all to the fintech, obviously. So banks have to come up the curve, close the digital divide, digital gap, or the digital chops have to be acquired by a bank. Take yourself out there, acquire more people, retain them. So if you retain them more, you can lend to them more. You can underwrite more. If you can lend more, then obviously the merchant on the roads with a small shop is going to slowly get more things to sell, or upgrade his shop, put it on the high street somewhere. Right? So it's all an ecosystem. So it's again it's a transformation of the banking industry. Obviously, I can't do individually. So we will talk in different areas. Different people will try to do the same thing over and over again. But the benefit is to the large masses at the end of the day.
You know what amazes me truly is the level of depth and passion with which Deepak cares about the subject. I've seen him speak across many forums, and I'm sure there'll be more. And what we would love to do, Deepak, with you is to collaborate more on driving education on the subject. This is State of Retention Marketing, a very exciting conversation, a lot of in-depth insights from Deepak here. I hope some of the bankers in that ecosystem are now able to leverage some of these ideas on thinking about the larger picture strategically as well as some of these things tactically. Thank you so much for doing this, Deepak. Been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.